Welcome. My name is Michaela, this is Meekela Reads, I live here. I would like to clear the air before we start. This is not a romance recommendations video. This is, however, a video in which I'm going to recommend you some books that I think would be perfect to read or be gifted on Valentine's Day. Books that celebrate love, books that include love, books with romances that I have thoroughly enjoyed that are not necessarily all just romances. I'm someone who will be likely spending Valentine's Day reading a book, so these are just going to be some books that I think will warm your heart, pump some life back into your veins, just so that we can celebrate some different loves on Valentine's Day. I'm going to start in the fantasy genre. I was going to recommend some like fantasy romances, but I haven't found any that I've liked since A Court of Thorns and Roses, and I actually don't think that I would still like A Court of Thorns and Roses as much as I do now if I hadn't read it when I first read it. It's a nostalgia thing at this point, but I will always love it despite its questionable plot and characters and author and everything else. Typically, there is always at least one romance subplot, and so first book that I want to recommend to you is a book that I've already talked about quite a lot, and so has the rest of the internet. It is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. Cozy fantasy is the way to go, I think. The story follows Viv. She's an orc. She has had a life of adventuring already, completing quests, getting all of the riches. However, she wants a bit of a change in scenery, and so she hangs up her sword, literally, to open a coffee shop. And the premise of this book is literally just Viv opening a coffee shop and all of the things that come along with that. It's relatively short. It has the most beautiful characters and found family vibes, a beautiful sapphic romance, and such delicious tasty pastries. Maybe grab a snack if you're gonna read this one. Then, again, for the fantasy romances, you're probably safe to include any of Marissa Meyer's retellings. Retellings are based in fairy tales, which always have romance in them. However, Marissa Meyer puts a really cool spin on all of hers. So this series has like a sci-fi spin to it, which is pretty cool, but it's definitely still a fantasy. It's definitely still fairy tale retellings. She does also have the Gilded series, which I recently listened to. That one has more of like a slow burn romance to it that does span over the two books, so maybe not the greatest book to be reading like on Valentine's Day, but definitely a great series with some really different romances sprinkled within. And I have a last minute addition for this category because I finished reading it this morning. It is actually not out yet, but it will be out by Valentine's Day. It is A Deadly Vow by J.D. Ronan. I just finished reading the arc of this morning, and oh boy, this is a dark fantasy romance that's also got quite a heavy political component to it. So again, definitely not a one night sitting kind of book, but a great book for cinnamon roll male main character, badass powerful female character, enemies to lovers, one bed trope. Who did this to you? The first third of the book is quite dense in terms of the politics and the world building, and the writing style is quite poetic and almost lyrical. I had to read every single word on every single page to figure out what was happening, which is not a fault of the book, that's just my brain was not there. That's fine. I still had a really good time with it, but absolutely by 50% of the way through the book I was done. I think I read half of this literally in one sitting last night and this morning. A Deadly Vow. As I said, not out yet. This is released on the 13th of February, so it will be out just in time for Valentine's Day to occur. Keep an eye out for it. Let's talk about some graphic novels. I'm very aware of the fact that I have recommended both of these before in separate videos for different things. However, I will not stop because they're worth it. Also, graphic novels are a genre that I am still relatively new to, so I haven't read that many of them, so the ones that I'm recommending are the ones that I have read that I have loved. My cream of the crop. So first, if you have already read Heartstopper and you've already binged the TV show 4 or 5 times at this point, perhaps try this instead. This is a lovely coming of age, but also figuring out what you're doing with your life story that follows 2 boys, one of which who is living in this town, has always lived in this town, and his family actually own the bakery on the beach, and the new guy in town who is, again, trying to figure out what he's doing with his life, and he is looking for a job. Match made in heaven. We have a lovely romance. We have, again, delicious pastries and baked goods. There is a recipe in the back as well for crumble, I believe. So maybe you could make your own treats. Make yourself a lovely snack. Have your loved one make you a snack while you read this book. The art style is fantastic. The color palette is beautiful. I'm a sucker for a colored monochromatic graphic novel. It is perfect in every way. However, if you're after something that is maybe not as fluffy, maybe not as light, a little bit more content dense. There is obviously always Olympus by Rachel Smythe. This was a webtoon. You don't have to buy the physical copies of it. You can just sign up to Webtoon and read them for free. An easy, nice, budget-friendly option. It is a Hades Persephone retelling, romance, love story, a lot of angst and also a lot of quite confronting content. So if you are going to read this, check the warnings, please. Keep your brain safe. But again, it is another graphic novel that has just beautiful colors. Every character kind of has their own color, which I think is kind of cool, and it makes it easier for me to know who is who, because we all know that Greek mythology is not my strong suit. So Olympus. Those are my graphic novel recommendations. Graphic novels are great. I have but one magical realism, and that is Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. I'm very aware of the fact that this is the second one and not the first one. Someone else has my copy of the first one at this minute. This is a really, really lovely anthology of short stories all surrounding this cafe in Tokyo that allows you to travel back in time. The reason I've included it in this video is, again, it's a really lovely short collection of stories, but also it explores lots of different types of love and different types of relationships and emotions that come along with those relationships in a way that's quite unique. There is 3 books. In each of the 3 books we follow 4 stories of different people who have gone back in time or who are going back in time. I haven't read the 3rd one yet, but I have read 1 and 2 and I thoroughly enjoyed both of them. Absolutely a book that you can pick up and read on the night of Valentine's Day. And finally, the romance recommendations for the love celebration holiday. I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't make a full romance recommendations video just because I haven't read enough romances that I actually liked and think are worth your time reading or are worth prioritizing reading over other things. You just can't go past The Love Hypothesis, and I know it's controversial and I know it's been flogged to death, but I still haven't found another book that made my heart flutter like this did in quite a long time. This is an enemies to lovers, hate to love. I liked the romance, I liked the characters, good level of spice that was tolerable and not icky. It had every trope I loved. It was a popular book for a reason. It did what it came to do. And I reckon if you gave it a good hard go, you could finish it in one night. And finally, the only other romance book that I've read recently that I have liked, The Kiss Quotient by Helen Hong. In this one we actually have an autistic main character, which I really enjoyed. She's living her best life, working in her dream job, just doing her thing, living her life. She ends up hiring an escort to teach her how to be better in the bedroom because someone insinuated that she was not. You can imagine all of the difficulties that come along with all of those things that I just said being mushed into one book. It was just a bit different. It was different to the romances that I've read, and it wasn't awful and abusive, which is most other romances that I've read recently. The Kiss Quotient, a good one. And that concludes my Valentine's Day recommendations. Again, not a romance recommendation video, just books that include love that I have loved. In making this, I realized that someone who needs a romance subplot in a book to actually enjoy it, I haven't read that many romances. I don't have a wide range of knowledge on romances on my shelf. I'm a bit sad about. Maybe that's my goal for this year. Please shower me with recommendations of your favorite romance books, because as previously stated, I will just be reading on Valentine's Day. I need something to read. Help a gal out. That would be much appreciated. I hope you have a lovely Valentine's Day. I hope it's nice. I hope you have a fantastic day or night or whatever time it is where you are in the world, and I will see you next week. Goodbye!